Now, competition between supermarkets has led to the first monthly drop in food prices for more than 2 years. The British Retail Consortium said prices in September down not much, but 0.1% from the previous month. With perfect timing, we're joined by the Minister for Food, Farming and Fisheries, Mark Spencer. Did you write this script in advance? I mean, food's been going up relentlessly, and now we've had the first fall for 2 years.
I think, to be fair, it's, you know, the Prime Minister is mounting this war on inflation. It's really important that we get a grip of inflation, because it really does damage low-paid and pensioners and people who've not got assets. So inflation is our primary battle. I think we continue to invest in our UK food producers and our farmers to try and make sure we're as efficient as possible. But we are driven by the winds of a global pandemic and a war in Europe, which has had an enormous effect on people's standard of living.
How big a factor is the war in Ukraine with the impact on the grain price?
I mean, it's huge. So Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe. It produces nearly 70% of sunflower oil, which you won't know that you consume, but every Walker's crisp, of course, is cooked in sunflower oil. So it's had a huge impact on grain movements around the world and the price of protein, if you like, and that does drive all the way through the food sector. So it knocks on to poultry prices, to pig prices, to milk prices, and it makes it very challenging for farmers up and down the country.
What can the government do to help families watching this programme who are really struggling with the shopping bill? They look at the supermarket drawer and they have to take something out because they realise they can't afford to pay it.
Yeah, well, so number one, of course, the Chancellor's put a huge amount of cash into supporting families with their energy bills and to make sure that they can afford to pay their energy, actually paying almost half the energy bill of people up and down the country. But as a government, we're also supporting our UK farmers to make sure that they can be profitable, but also can continue to produce top quality food at a reasonable price for our consumers, something which they've done for generations and something which we should be very grateful for.
What about these supermarkets?
So of course, we've got to have fairness in the supply chain.
Is there fairness?
So I think let's not bash supermarkets too hard.
Why not?
Because to be fair to them,
why not?
All the way through the pandemic, we had food on the shelves.
Sure.
You know, they've done a good job of keeping us well fed. Actually, when you look at the price of a basket of goods in the UK, it's much lower than it is in France and Germany. That's because of the competitiveness of our supermarket sector. But there has to be fairness in that supply chain. So you've got to have farmers who get rewarded for the risk they're taking in producing those commodities and those crops. And if the retailer is taking all of the profit and the farmer is taking all the risk, that is unfair.
Now you speak from interest because you know all about farming. If you're a milk farmer, how much milk is the farmer getting at a pint, if they sell a pint of milk?
So literally, you know, it can be down at 30 pence a litre at certain times of year when you compare that to, you know, £1 a pint in the shops. So I think we've got to make sure that enough of that profit gets passed down the supply chain to the farmer, and that's why we're actually going to legislate to make sure that those dairy contracts are fair to everybody who's in the dairy sector.
And also we know that the various regulators are looking at the supermarkets about the labelling and all that sort of thing. But I was listening to the Prime Minister this morning. He did 2 or 3 broadcast interviews. He was pressed every time. How could you possibly know what the cost of living crisis is like when you're married to the daughter of a billionaire? He's the richest Prime Minister we've ever had. Is that a fair criticism, Minister?
No, I actually don't think that is a fair. I mean, of all the Prime Ministers we've seen, you know, Rishi does seem to be very in tune with normal people and certainly with my constituents. He's a very thoughtful man. He actually considers what's happening in the world, and he wants to improve that. And I think actually we're blessed with him as our Prime Minister at this moment in time.
But he is the richest Prime Minister we've ever had.
Well, I mean, so it makes him. It means he can't be bought. It means he can't be influenced. I think it makes him wholly independent in his thought process. But you know, I think whether he's rich or whether he's not, I think is irrelevant. What matters is, are his policies right? Is he taking the country in the right direction? Does he care? And I think in all of those cases, you can say he absolutely does.
The Home Secretary is going to speak this afternoon, Suella Braverman. Some ministers have been a bit reluctant to embrace the language she uses to describe the battle against illegal migration crossing the Channel. Is she speaking the language that you understand?
So I think what she's saying is, and we can all sign up to this, the conventions around, if you like, migration were developed in the 50s. I think clearly the world is a very different place, and we just need to work with our international partners to make sure that we are in the right place today. I think that's an interesting interesting conversation to be had internationally. But of course, we want to try and smash these terrible gangs that are exploiting very vulnerable people.
You've had years to do it.
Well, and of course, and we've been frustrated by the courts, and we've been frustrated by the Commons and the Labour Party vote against all this stuff, but we're going to deliver it. Rwanda is very close to working. We're going to make sure we get through the backlog, and we'll get to a place where immigration is something we can control and use as a tool. So immigration is good for our economy, and we are using people within the economy that are immigrants, but of course, we've got to stop the illegal immigration.